Hey friends, in this one we are reading chapter number 11 of our CA final audit, that is nothing but the prospective financial information and other assurance services. So we are on chapter number 11, that is nothing but the which is applicable for May 25, that is nothing but the prospective financial information and other assurance services. After studying this chapter, we all students will be able to gain knowledge about the standards on assurance engagement. तो हमें ये standards किस पे है? Standards on assurance engagement पे है. That is SAE. We will understand what will be the meaning of prospective financial information क्या है. Know about what are the responsibility of professional accountant in examining and reporting on prospective financial information under the standards on assurance engagement SAE 3400. The standards on assurance engagement is nothing but the SAE standards on assurance engagement, that is the SAE 3400. Understand the meaning of service organization का क्या मतलब है. Understand the importance of control of a service organization to a user entity's internal control relating to financial reporting. So we will able to know about the importance of control of a service organization to a user entity's internal control, that is basically relating to the financial reporting. Know about what are the responsibility of professional accountant under SAE 3402. Understand the meaning of what is the Proforma financial information. We will understand what are the responsibility of practitioners in assurance engagement to report on the compilation of Proforma financial information which is included in a prospectus under SAE 3420. So there will be three standard under SAE, that is the 3400 prospective financial information, then SAE 3402 and SAE 3420. 3402 is similar to which we have read जहाँ हमने standards on auditing में पढ़ा था, that is I think it was SA 402 something. So SAE 3402 talks about what will be the assurance report on control at a service organization. तो हमें पता चलेगा कि इस बारे में एश्योरेंस रिपोर्ट क्या ऑन कंट्रोल एट ए सर्विस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. हमें पता चलेगा व्हाट विल बी द एश्योरेंस रिपोर्ट्स क्या होगी ऑन कंट्रोल एट अ सर्विस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. Assurance report on a control at a service organization, and 3420 is nothing but 3420 क्या होगा. 3420 is the assurance engagement. 3420 क्या होगा. 3420 is the assurance engagement क्या है, to report on the compilation, how there will be the compilation of Proforma financial information which is included in a prospectus. उसके बाद आता है हमारा एक्सपी लिमिटेड, एक कंपनी जो कि इंगेज है इन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ पैंट, इज सेट टू लॉन्च अ न्यू प्रोजेक्ट फॉर सेटिंग अप अ फूड प्रोसेसिंग प्लांट at Noida, lured by slew of investor-friendly measure announced by the state government in recently held Global Investor Summit. Being a new line of activity for the company, it asked Chirag, having a MBA finance qualification, employed as a senior finance executive in the company, to prepare the detailed projection and feasibility of the said project. The company, तो हम क्या बोलते हैं? The company management wants him to make a detailed study. The company management wants him to make a detailed study conforming to acquisition of land, construction of a plant, building, procurement of plant and machinery, projected targets of turnover, profit, sources of funds including the financial assistance to be taken from bank, etc. The said study is also to be used for submission to bankers for borrowing purpose. Adept in preparing such studies, he prepares such a projection considering the above factors, highlighting the expected sales, profit, key financial ratio, debt service coverage ratio over a period of 7 years, payback period and IRR, that is the internal rate of return, replete with the chart, bar graphs and the diagrams. The said study was also submitted to the bankers for providing the financial assistance for upcoming project of the company. The bankers of the company now require an assurance report from a professional accountant on information contained in above study. B wilder to know this. He wanted to understand reason of such a report from a professional accountant. Coming back to his office, he discussed the matter with the CFO, who asked him to meet CA Dilip in this regard. During discussions with the CA, it transpired that for issuance of such an assurance report, it would be examined whether the prospective financial information is prepared on the basis of assumptions, whether such assumptions are not unreasonable and are consistent with the purpose of study. Not only this, but it would also be looked into whether such information is consistent with the past financial statement and uses the appropriate accounting principle. He started groundwork in these areas as instructed by the CFO before engaging services of professional accountant. Learning about the assurance report on a prospective financial information, he was also wondering whether the professional accountant can also provide such a report intended to enhance the degree of confidence of the users in respect of known financial matters. What could be such a circumstances? What could be such a type of matters? Then moving further, that is the introduction. इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या आएगा? ट्रेडिशनली जो अटेस्ट फंक्शन परफॉर्म किए जाते हैं बाय द चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट इन प्रैक्टिस हैज बीन in relation to the past events. However, growing and dynamic society has now started seeking professional association and its exercises relating to future. A manifestation of this is the requirement of bank, financial institution and prospective investor regarding the preparation of projected cash flows and profitability statements by the intending borrowers or investee for the purpose of making an appropriate appraisal of their loan application and equity proposal. The institution places a greater reliance on such a statement if they are prepared or reviewed by the chartered accountant. This future-oriented financial statement are generally known as the prospective financial statements. The shareholder of X Limited has given consent to Board of Directors to plan raise funds from prospective equity investor and have asked your firm to report on the accuracy of the profit forecast and statement of financial position of the entity for following 5 years so it could be placed before the equity investors. Then come moving further, that is the standards on assurance engagement, that is the SAE. An assurance engagement may relate to examination of subject matters other than examination of financial statement which is prepared on the basis of historical financial information. In such a type of assurance engagement, examination may relate to prospective financial information or providing assurance known financial matters like design and operation of internal control in an entity. Standard on assurance engagement deal with the responsibility of professional accountant in assurance engagement dealing such a matter. The level of assurance provided by the standards on assurance engagement is moderate. Following standards on assurance engagement have been issued. SAE, that is the standards on assurance engagement 3400, कैसे एग्जामिनेशन होगा prospective financial information का. 3402, that is कैसे assurance report होगा on a control at a service organization. 3402 is कैसे assurance report होगा on a control at a service organization. 3420, that is कैसे assurance engagement होगा to report on the compilation of the Proforma financial information that is included in a prospectus. स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑन इंश्योरेंस एंगेजमेंट 3400 एग्जामिनेशन बताता है प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन. ऐसे ही 3400 प्रोवाइड गाइडेंस ऑन एंगेजमेंट टू एग्जामिन एंड रिपोर्ट ऑन प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन इंक्लूडिंग एग्जामिनेशन प्रोसीजर्स फॉर बेस्ट एस्टिमेट एंड हाइपोथेटिकल assumptions. Examination of prospective financial information need not necessarily be performed by statutory auditor of the entity's financial statement. What is basically the prospective financial information? क्या होता है? What is basically the prospective financial information? प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन एक ऐसा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन है जो कि बेस्ड होता है ऑन assumption about what are the events that may occur in the future and the possible actions of an entity. It is highly subjective in nature and in preparation requires the exercise of considerable judgment. Prospective financial information can be in the form हो सकता है forecast, projection and it may be the combination of both. For example, it is 1 year forecast plus 5 year projection. तो मतलब combination forecast is for the shorter duration whereas projection is for the longer duration. What is forecast? Forecast means prospective financial information को prepare किया गया है on the basis of assumption as to future event which management expect to take place and the action management expect to take as of the date of information is prepared, that is the best estimate assumptions. An assumption that reflect the anticipated experience with no provision for risk of adverse deviation. In present market conditions, supply availability, historical buying pattern, and seasonal trend, that the CFO of X Limited expects sales to increase by 5% over the next quarter. Therefore, a 5% sale increase in his financial forecast for the period. Now, what is projection? Projection क्या है? Prospective financial information prepared on the basis of hypothetical assumption about future events and management action which are not necessarily expected to take place, such as when some entities are in a startup phase or are considering a major change in the nature of operation, or a mixture of best estimate and hypothetical assumptions imagined or suggested. X Limited may project a course of action to take one or more hypothetical situation arise, such as creating a new product to meet the demand of expected market growth. As a result of assuming the possibility of different events occurring, financial projections typically serve as an outline for evaluating the desired outcome. X Limited is expected to see including its financial, cash flow, and operational outcomes. A company plans to raise funds from a prospective equity investors and has asked a firm of chartered accountant to examine the profit forecast for placing it before prospective equity investors. A company is in a process of setting up a new plant. It needs financial assistance from bank in shape of a term loan and working capital credit facilities. The company has prepared a projection of its profit cash flow for next 7 years along with underlying assumptions. Now coming and moving further, that is the scope of standards on assurance engagement SAE 3400, that is क्या होता है prospective financial information. The purpose of the standards on assurance engagement is to establish the standards and provide guidance on engagement to examine and report कैसे आप examination and report करोगे on the prospective financial information, that including examination procedure for best estimate and hypothetical assumptions. This standards on engagement does not apply to the examination of prospective financial information expressed in a general or narrative term, such as that found in a management discussion and analysis in an entity's annual report, though many of the procedures outlined herein may be suitable for such an examination. Further, the principle laid down in the other standards on auditing issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India should be used by the auditor to the extent practicable in applying these standards on assurance engagement. The term auditor is used throughout this standards on assurance engagement when describing services involving the examination of prospective financial information. Such a reference is not intended to imply that a member performing such a service need necessarily be the statutory auditor of the entity's financial statement. What will be the nature of assurance regarding the prospective financial information? Prospective financial information relates to events and actions that have not yet occurred and might not occur. While evidence may be available to support the assumption on which the prospective financial information is based, such evidence is itself generally future-oriented and therefore speculative in nature, as a distinct from the evidence ordinarily available in the examination of historical financial information. Therefore, an opinion as to whether the results shown in the prospective financial information will be achieved and cannot be expressed. जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है प्रिपरेशन एंड प्रेजेंटेशन की प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन, मैनेजमेंट रिस्पॉन्सिबल है प्रिपरेशन के लिए, प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन इंक्लूडिंग द आइडेंटिफिकेशन एंड डिस्क्लोजर ऑफ प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन, एक्सप्लेनिंग व्हाट विल बी द बेसिस ऑफ फोरकास्ट एंड अंडरलाइंग assumptions. Can professional accountant be associated with prospective financial information? Traditionally, the test function performed by the chartered accountant in practice has been in relation to historical financial information, recognizing the professional skill and competence of chartered accountant. Varied stakeholders like the bank, financial institution, and prospective investors intend to place greater reliance on a report of projected cash flow and profitability statement examined and signed by the chartered accountant. Clause 3 of Second Schedule to the Chartered Accountant Act 1949 state that the chartered accountant in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he permit his name or the name of his firm to be used in connection with an estimate of earning contingent upon future transaction in a manner which may lead to the belief that he vouches for the accuracy of the forecast. The above clause does not preclude a chartered accountant from associating his name with prospective financial statement. A chartered accountant can participate in a preparation of profit or financial forecasts and can review them provided he indicate clearly in his report the sources of information, the basis of forecast, and also the measure assumption made in arriving at the forecast so long as he does not vouch for the accuracy of the forecast. The same also apply to projection made on the basis of hypothetical assumption about future events and management action which are not necessarily expected to take place so long as vouching for the accuracy for the of the projection is not made. What will be the duty of member who is examining the prospective financial information? In an engagement to examine the prospective financial information, the auditor should obtain sufficient appropriate appropriate evidence as to whether the management's best estimate assumption on which the prospective financial information is based are not unreasonable, and in case of hypothetical assumptions, such assumptions are consistent with the purpose of information. The prospective financial information is properly prepared on the basis of assumption. The prospective financial information is properly presented and all material assumptions are adequately disclosed, including a clear indication as to whether they are best estimate assumption or the hypothetical assumption. The prospective financial information is prepared on a consistent basis with historical financial statement using the appropriate accounting principles. While examining the prospective financial information, what are the principles laid down in this other standards on auditing should be applied to the extent practicable. Nature of assurance regarding the prospective financial information. Prospective financial information relates to events and action that have not yet occurred and might not occur. While evidence may be available to support the assumption on which the prospective financial information is based, such evidence is itself generally future oriented and therefore speculative in nature, as distinct from the evidence ordinarily available in the examination of historical financial information. Therefore, an opinion as to whether the results shown in the prospective financial information will be achieved cannot be expressed. Then आता है हमारा acceptance of engagement. What are the precautions that is to be taken by auditor before accepting such an engagement? कौन से precautions हमें लेने पड़ेंगे? What are the precautions that is to be taken by auditor before accepting such an engagement? Before accepting an engagement to examine the prospective financial information, the auditor would consider amongst the other things what will be the intended use of the information, whether the information will be for general or limited distribution. Nature क्या होगा assumption, that is whether they are best estimate or hypothetical assumption, the element to be included in the information and the period covered by the information. What will be the period covered by the information? Acceptance of engagement, the intended use of information, whether the information will be for general or limited distribution. The nature of assumption, that is whether they are best estimate or the hypothetical assumption. The element to be included in the information and the period covered by the information. Further, the auditor should not accept or should withdraw from an engagement when the assumptions are clearly unrealistic or when the auditor believes that the prospective financial information will be inappropriate for its intended use. The auditor जो है वो consider करेगा to the extent to which reliance on entities' historical financial information is justified. Like in other engagement, it is necessary that the terms of engagement should be agreed with the client by sending an engagement letter. Then comes that is the examination procedure. जब हम determine करेंगे the nature, timing and extent of examination procedures, the following matters should be considered such as examination procedure, what will be the knowledge obtained during any previous engagement, management competence regarding the preparation of prospective financial information, the likelihood of material misstatement, the extent to which the prospective financial information is affected by the management's judgment, the source of information considered by the management for the purpose and adequacy, reliability of underlying data, including data derived from third parties such as industry statistics to support the assumptions, the stability of entity's business and the engagement team experience with the business and the industry in which the entity operates with the reporting on prospective financial information. In performing this procedure, sources and reliability of the evidence supporting management best estimate assumption need to be assessed. Such evidence may be available from varied sources like entities, budgets, debt agreement, industry publication. When hypothetical assumptions are used, all significant implications of such assumptions should have been taken into consideration. For example, if sales are assumed to be grow beyond the entity's current planned capacity, the prospective financial information will need to include the necessary investment in the additional plant capacity or the cost of alternative means of meeting the anticipated sales, such as subcontracting production. It need to be verified that the hypothetical assumptions are consistent with the purpose of prospective financial information and that there is no reason to believe that they are clearly unrealistic. देन आता है हमारा प्रेजेंटेशन एंड डिस्क्लोजर. जब हम असेस करेंगे प्रेजेंटेशन एंड डिस्क्लोजर ऑफ प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन और जो अंडरलाइंग assumption है, in addition to the specific requirement of any relevant statute, regulation as well as the relevant professional pronouncement, it need to be considered whether क्या जो प्रेजेंटेशन है प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इन्फॉर्मेशन वो इन्फॉर्मेटिव है, मिसलीडिंग नहीं है, क्या जो अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसी वो क्लियरली डिस्क्लोज होगा इन द नोट्स ऑफ प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इन्फॉर्मेशन, क्या जो अजम्पशन है वो एडिक्वेटली डिस्क्लोज होगा इन द नोट्स थ्रू द प्रोस्पेक्टिव फाइनेंशियल इन्फॉर्मेशन. इट नीड टू बी क्लियर whether the assumption represent management best estimate or hypothetical, and when assumptions are made in areas that are material and are subject to high degree of uncertainty, this uncertainty and the resulting sensitivity of results need to be adequately disclosed. The date of which the prospective financial information was prepared is disclosed. Management need to confirm that the assumptions are appropriate as of this date, even though the underlying information may be accumulated over a period of time. The basis of establishing points in a range is clearly indicated, and the range is not selected in a biased or misleading manner. When results shown in a prospective financial information are expressed in terms of range. If there is any change in the accounting policy of entity from that disclosed in a most recent historical financial statement, whether the reason for change and the effect of such a change on prospective financial information has been adequately disclosed. Report on examination of prospective financial information. So report hoga for an examination of prospective financial information should contain what will be the title, address, identification of prospective financial information, reference to the standards on auditing applicable to the examination of prospective financial information, statement कि management जो है वो responsible है for the prospective financial information which including the underlying assumption when applicable, a reference to the purpose or and or restricted distribution of the prospective financial information. Statement that the examination procedures included examination on a test basis of evidence supporting the assumption amount and other disclosure in a forecast or projection. Statement of negative assurance as to whether the assumption provide a reasonable basis for prospective financial information. Opinion as to whether the prospective financial information is properly prepared on the basis of assumption and is presented in accordance with the relevant financial reporting framework. Appropriate caveats concerning the achievability of results indicated by prospective financial information. What will be the date of report, which should be the date procedures have been completed, place of signature and the signature. So clearly indicating what will be the title, address, the identification of prospective financial information. Reference to the standards on auditing applicable to examination of prospective financial information. Statement that management is responsible here for prospective financial information including the underlying assumption. When applicable, a reference to the purpose and restricted distribution क्या है of respective financial information. Statement that the examination procedures included examination on a test basis or evidence supporting the assumption amount and other disclosure in a forecast or projection. Statement of negative assurance as to whether the assumption provide a reasonable basis for prospective financial information. Opinion as to whether the prospective financial information is properly prepared on the basis of assumption and is presented in accordance with the relevant financial reporting framework. Appropriate caveats concerning the achievability of the results indicated by the prospective financial information. Date of report, which should be the date procedures have been completed, what will be the place of signature and the signature. Then such a report would state whether the based on the examination of evidence supporting the assumptions, anything has come to attention which causes the belief that the assumption do not provide a reasonable basis for prospective financial information. Express an opinion on whether the क्या prospective financial information properly prepared किया जाएगा on the basis of assumption and is presented in accordance with relevant financial reporting framework. State that what will be the actual results are likely to be different from prospective financial information since anticipated events frequently do not occur as expected and the variation could be material. Likewise, when the prospective financial information is expressed as a range, it would be stated that there can be no assurance that the actual results will fall within the range, and in case of a projection, the prospective financial information have been prepared for intended use using a set of assumptions that include hypothetical assumptions about the future events and management action that are not necessarily expected to occur. Consequently, readers are cautioned that the prospective financial information should not be used for the purpose other than the above mentioned intended use. When it is believed that the presentation and disclosure of prospective financial information is not adequate, a qualified or adverse opinion in the report on prospective financial information should be expressed, or withdrawal from engagement should be made as appropriate. An example would be where the financial information fails to disclose adequately the consequences of any assumption which are of highly sensitive. When it is believed that one and more significant assumptions do not provide a reasonable basis for the prospective financial information prepared on the basis of best estimate assumption, or that one or more significant assumptions do not provide a reasonable basis for the prospective financial information given, the hypothetical assumption as an adverse opinion setting out the reason in the report on the prospective financial information should be expressed, or withdrawal from the engagement should be made. When the examination is affected by any condition that preclude यानी कि prohibit application of one and more procedures considered necessary in the circumstance, either withdrawal from the engagement and disclaimer of opinion and describing the scope and limitation in the report on a prospective financial information is considered. Then documentation. So what is documentation? Matter which are important in providing evidence to support report on examination of prospective financial information and evidence that such examination was carried out in accordance with the standards on assurance engagement should be documented. A company has approached C. Hammond for an assurance report in respect of prospective financial information of a project. On going through the project detail, it is noticed that the depreciation reflected on a proposed fixed assets to be acquired in prospective financial information has been calculated in accordance with the provision of Income Tax Act. No disclosure is made in this respect to how the matter should be proceeded with. In such a type of engagement, it is the duty of professional accountant to see that the prospective financial information is based on a consistent basis with historical financial statement using appropriate accounting principles. In a case of a company, historical financial statement are prepared considering the requirement of Companies Act and the appreciation is calculated accordingly. However, in the given situation, the appreciation has been calculated in accordance with the Income Tax Act 1961, which is not consistent with the historical financial statement. Therefore, it is not proper. The fact that the projection has not been prepared on a consistent basis with historical financial statement using appropriate accounting principle need to be stated. Further, when presentation and disclosure are not adequate, a qualified or adverse opinion should be given and withdrawal from the engagement should be made as appropriate. So with this, we have read the entire essay 3400 that is nothing but कैसे आप examination करोगे report on the prospective financial information. Now अब हम क्या करें? That is the matter of discussion क्योंकि chapter तो बड़ा है, इतना बड़ा read करना, तो हम इसी को read करते हैं. हम जो next standard है वो थोड़ा बाद में पढ़ते हैं because chapter बड़ा है, इतना छोटा नहीं है जितना दिख रहा है. यहाँ पे 340 कितना बड़ा है देख लो. Whether I am in a position to read the entire और whether I need a break. Actually 3402 तो वैसे भी बड़ा है क्योंकि 402 भी इतना बड़ा था. एक बार देख लेते कि 3420 क्या छोटा है, वरना फिर हम वो पढ़ लेते हैं. तो 3420 इतना बड़ा नहीं है, तो 3420 को तो हम पढ़ लेते हैं. 3402 को बाद में फिर कभी पढ़ते हैं, देखते हैं. ठीक है. तो हमारे 3 स्टैंडर्ड है जिसमें से एक पढ़ लिया है, एक हम बाद में पढ़ेंगे और थर्ड वाला हम पढ़ रहे हैं. तो ऐसे ही दैट इज द स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑन एश्योरेंस एंगेजमेंट 3420 एश्योरेंस एंगेजमेंट टू रिपोर्ट ऑन अ कंपाइलेशन ऑफ प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन इंक्लूडेड इन अ प्रोस्पेक्टस. तो हम क्या बोलते हैं, जैसे एश्योरेंस एंगेजमेंट टू रिपोर्ट ऑन अ कंपाइलेशन ऑफ प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन. प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन जैसे कि आपने ड्यूरिंग द ईयर जैसे कि कोई सब्सिडी का एक्विजिशन किया या कुछ भी किया तो उसका एडजस्टमेंट आप रिफ्लेक्ट करोगे उस ईयर में, ऑल इंक्लूडेड इन अ प्रोस्पेक्टस. 3S Standards on Assurance Engagement 3420 deals with the reasonable assurance engagement undertaken to report on the responsible parties compilation of pro forma financial information which is included in a prospectus. Reporting is required by security law or regulation of the security extent of which jurisdiction of which the prospectus is to be issued or this reporting is generally. So what is basically the proforma financial information. Proforma financial information क्या होता है? Information refers to the financial information which shown together with adjustment to illustrate the impact of an event or transaction on unadjusted financial information as it is the event had date is selected for purpose of the illustration. So what is financial refers to the financial information with shown together with adjustment to illustrate the impact of an event or transaction on unadjusted financial information if the event has occurred or the transaction has been undertaken at an earlier date selected for the purposes of illustration. The proforma financial information is normally used in an offer document to demonstrate the effect of transaction on financial statement of a company if those transactions had occurred at an earlier date. The proforma financial information may take the form of the statement of P&L and the balance sheet to illustrate how this transaction might have affected the assets, liability and earning of the issuer. They also include notes in relation to significant aspects of transaction assumption used to prepare the proforma financial information and the adjustment made. जो पर्पस होता है प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन इंक्लूडेड इन अ प्रोस्पेक्टस इज solely to illustrate the impact of significant event and transactions on unadjusted financial information of the entity if the event had occurred or the transaction has been undertaken at an earlier date selected for purpose of illustration. This is achieved by applying the proforma adjustment to the unadjusted financial information. Proforma financial information does not represent the entity's actual financial position, financial performance, or the cash flows. What will be the objective in accordance with the Standards on Assurance Engagement 3420? The objective of practitioners in accordance with the Standards on Assurance Engagement 3420 are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the proforma financial information has been compiled in all material respect by the responsible party on the basis of applicable criteria and to report in accordance with the practitioner's findings. How there will be the compilation of proforma financial information. The compilation of proforma financial information involves the responsible party gathering, classifying, summarizing and presenting financial information जो कि illustrate करेगा the impact of significant event or transaction on the unadjusted financial information of the entity as if the event had occurred or the transaction has been undertaken at the selected date. What are the steps to involve in this process include having identified and a source of unadjusted financial information to be used in compiling the proforma financial information and extracting the unadjusted financial information from that source, making proforma adjustment to the unadjusted financial information for the purpose for which the proforma financial information is presented. And we will present the result of proforma financial information with accompanying disclosures. What will be the nature of practitioner's responsibility? In such an engagement performed under this as standards on assurance engagement, the practitioner has no responsibility to compile the proforma financial information for the entity. Such a responsibility rests with the responsible party. The practitioner's sole responsibility is to report on whether the proforma financial information has been compiled in all material respect by the responsible party on the basis of applicable criteria. It is a reasonable assurance engagement to report on a compilation of proforma financial information involving performing the procedure to assess whether the applicable criteria used by the responsible party in the compilation of proforma financial information provide a reasonable basis for presenting the significant effect directly attributable to the event or transaction. What are the steps involved in such an engagement? Engagement acceptance, planning and performance engagement, written representation, forming the opinion and preparing the assurance report. Then moving further, that is engagement acceptance. Before agreeing to accept an engagement to report on whether the proforma financial information included in a prospectus has been compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria, the practitioner shall consider what are the matters that is to be stated below. Applicable criteria are used by the responsible party while when compiling the proforma financial information. Criteria may be established by an authorized or recognized standard setting organization or by law or regulation. Where established criteria do not exist, they will be developed by the responsible party. Determine that the practitioner has the capabilities and a competence to perform the engagement. On the basis of preliminary knowledge of engagement circumstances and discussion with the responsible party, determine that the applicable criteria are suitable and it is unlikely that the proforma financial information will be misleading for the purpose for which it is intended. Evaluate KJ the wordings of opinion prescribed by the relevant law or regulation. If any, to determine the practitioner will likely to be able to express the opinion so prescribed based on performing the procedures specified in this standards on auditing, standards on assurance engagement. Where the sources from which the unadjusted financial information and any query or diversity financial information have been extracted have been audited and reviewed, and a modified audited opinion or a review conclusion has been expressed on the report contained an EOM para, consider whether or not the relevant law and regulation permit the use of reference in the practitioner report to the modified opinion and review conclusion on the report containing the EOM para with respect to such sources. If the entity's historical financial information has never been audited or reviewed, consider whether the practitioner can obtain a sufficient understanding of the entity, its accounting and financial reporting practices to perform the engagement. If the event or transaction includes an acquisition and acquiree's historical financial information has never been audited and reviewed, consider whether the practitioner can obtain a sufficient understanding of the acquiree and its accounting and financial reporting practices to perform the engagement. Obtain the agreement of responsible party that it acknowledges and understands the responsibility for. Agreement क्या होगा of the responsible party adequately disclose and describing the applicable criteria to the intended users if these are not publicly available. Compiling the proforma financial information on the basis of applicable criteria and providing the practitioners with access to all information including when needed for the purpose of engagement information inquiry in a business combination such as record, documentation and other material relevant to evaluating whether the proforma financial information has been compiled in all material aspect on the basis of applicable criteria. Additional information that the practitioner may request from the responsible party for the purpose of engagement. Access to those within the entity and the entity's advisor. Access to those within the entities and the entities advisors from whom the practitioner determined it necessary to obtain evidence relating to evaluating whether the pro forma financial information has been compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria. When needed for the purpose of engagement, access to appropriate individual within the inquiries in a business combination. फिर कैसे हम प्लान एंड परफॉर्म करेंगे? ओह माय गॉड, ये बहुत बड़ा है, सच में बहुत बड़ा है। की टेकअवेज तो हम बाद में पढ़ लेंगे, एमसीक्यू भी बाद में पढ़ लेंगे, बट हमें अपना कंटेंट तो पूरा कवर करना ही पड़ेगा ना। कैसे आप प्लान करोगे, परफॉर्म करोगे एंगेजमेंट को? तो प्रैक्टिशनर जो है वो असेस करेगा क्या जो एप्लीकेबल क्राइटेरिया है क्या वो सुटेबल है, क्या रिक्वायर्ड है बाय द फ्रेमवर्क फॉर एश्योरेंस एंगेजमेंट। क्या जो प्लानिंग एंड परफॉर्मिंग द एंगेजमेंट प्रैक्टिशनर शैल कंसिडर मटेरियलिटी विद रिस्पेक्ट टू इवैल्यूएटिंग वेदर द परफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन कंपाइल्ड इन ऑल मटेरियल रिस्पेक्ट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ एप्लीकेबल क्राइटेरिया। एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग कैसे रिस्पॉन्सिबल पार्टी कंप्लाई करेगी द परफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन एंड अदर एंगेजमेंट सर्कमस्टेंसेस को। उसके बाद प्रैक्टिशनर ऑब्टेन करेगा एविडेंस अबाउट द एप्रोप्रिएटनेस ऑफ सोर्स फ्रॉम विच द अनएडजस्टेड फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन एक्सट्रैक्टेड। If there is a no audit or review report on the source from which the unadjusted financial information has been extracted, the practitioner shall perform procedures to be satisfied that the source is appropriate. प्रैक्टिशनर जो है वो डिटरमाइन करेगा कि रिस्पॉन्सिबल पार्टी के पास एप्रोप्रिएटली एक्सट्रैक्टेड द अनएडजस्टेड फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम द सोर्सेज। द प्रैक्टिशनर शैल ऑब्टेन एविडेंस अबाउट द एप्रोप्रिएटनेस ऑफ द प्रोफॉर्मा एडजस्टमेंट। In relation to unadjusted financial information, pro forma adjustment include what are the adjustment to unadjusted financial information that illustrate the impact of significant event and transaction if the event had occurred or transaction had been undertaken at an earlier date selected for the purpose of illustration. कौन से adjustment है to unadjusted financial information that are necessary for the pro forma financial information to be compiled on the consistent with applicable financial reporting framework or the reporting entities and its accounting policy under that framework. प्रैक्टिशनर जो है वो इवैल्यूएट करेगा प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन को। प्रैक्टिशनर जो है रीड करेगा अदर इंफॉर्मेशन जो कि इंक्लूडेड है इन द प्रोस्पेक्टस कंटेनिंग द प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन। कैसे आप आइडेंटिफाई करोगे मटेरियल इनकंसिस्टेंसी इफ एनी विद प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन के साथ। रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन, जो प्रैक्टिशनर है वो रिक्वेस्ट करेगा रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन फ्रॉम द रिस्पॉन्सिबल पार्टी की जो कंपाइलिंग प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन है। जो रिस्पॉन्सिबल पार्टी है हैज आइडेंटिफाई किया है ऑल एप्रोप्रिएट प्रोफॉर्मा एडजस्टमेंट जो कि नेसेसरी है टू इलस्ट्रेट द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ इवेंट एंड ट्रांजैक्शन एट द डेट और फॉर द पीरियड ऑफ इलस्ट्रेशन एंड द प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन कंपाइल्ड इन ऑल मटेरियल रिस्पेक्ट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ एप्लीकेबल क्राइटेरिया। अनमोडिफाइड ओपिनियन, जो प्रैक्टिशनर है वो एक्सप्रेस करेगा एक अनमोडिफाइड ओपिनियन जब प्रैक्टिशनर कंक्लूड करेगा कि प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन कंपाइल्ड इन ऑल मटेरियल रिस्पेक्ट बाय द रिस्पॉन्सिबल पार्टी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ एप्लीकेबल क्राइटेरिया। फिर आता है हमारा मॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन। मॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन जब वेयर द रेलेवेंट लॉ एंड रेगुलेशन प्रीक्लुएट्स पब्लिकेशन ऑफ प्रोस्पेक्टस दैट कंटेन अ मॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन विद रिगार्ड टू वेदर द प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन has been compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria and the practitioner conclude that the modified opinion is nevertheless appropriate in accordance with the framework for assurance engagement। the practitioner जो है वो डिस्कस करेगा with the responsible party, क्या जो responsible party है क्या वो agree नहीं होगी to make the necessary changes। the practitioner shall withdraw from the engagement and consider seeking legal advice। जहाँ पे भी रेलेवेंट लॉ एंड रेगुलेशन में नॉट प्रोहिबिट नहीं करता है पब्लिकेशन ऑफ प्रोस्पेक्टस दैट कंटेन अ मॉडिफाइड ओपिनियन विद रिगार्ड टू वेदर द प्रोफॉर्मा फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria and the practitioner determined that a modified opinion is appropriate in accordance with the framework of assurance engagement। the practitioner shall apply the requirement in a framework for assurance engagement regarding the modified opinion। para kya hai? In some circumstances, the practitioner may consider if it is necessary to draw the user's attention to a matter presented and disclosed in a pro forma financial information or accompanying explanatory notes. This would be the case when, in the practitioner opinion, the matter is of such importance that it is fundamental to the user's understanding of whether the pro forma financial information has been compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria। In such a circumstances, the practitioner shall include an EOM matter para in the practitioner report provided that the practitioner has obtained sufficient appropriate evidence that the matter does not affect whether the pro forma financial information has been compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria. Such a para shall refer only to the information presented or disclosed in the pro forma financial information and accompanying explanatory notes. कैसे हम प्रिपेयर करेंगे एश्योरेंस रिपोर्ट? जो प्रैक्टिशनर रिपोर्ट है वो इंक्लूड करेगा फॉलोइंग बेसिक एलिमेंट ऑफ एश्योरेंस रिपोर्ट, अ टाइटल दैट क्लियरली इंडिकेट दैट द रिपोर्ट इज एन इंडिपेंडेंट एश्योरेंस रिपोर्ट एंड एड्रेस एज अग्रीड इन द टर्म्स ऑफ एंगेजमेंट, इंट्रोडक्टरी पैरा दैट आइडेंटिफाई द pro forma financial information, the source from which the unadjusted financial information has been extracted, and whether or not an audit or review report on such a source has been published, the period covered by or the date or the pro forma financial information, the reference to the applicable criteria on the basis of which the responsible party has performed the compilation of the pro forma financial information and the source of the criteria. A statement कि responsible party responsible है for compiling the pro forma financial information on the basis of applicable criteria. A description of practitioner's responsibility including statement कि जो practitioner की जो responsibility है a description of the practitioner's responsibility including statement that जो practitioner की responsibility है वो क्या है, that is to express an opinion about क्या जो pro forma financial information है वो compiled होगा सारे material respect में by the responsible party on the basis of applicable criteria. For the purpose of this engagement, the practitioner is not responsible for updating or reissuing any report or opinion or any historical financial information used in compiling the pro forma financial information, or not the practitioner in the course of this engagement perform an audit and review of financial information used in compiling the pro forma financial information. The purpose of pro forma financial information included in a prospectus is solely to illustrate that the impact of significant event and transaction on unadjusted financial information of the entity if the event has occurred or transaction has undertaken at earlier date selected for the purpose of illustration. Accordingly, the practitioner does not provide any assurance that the actual outcome of the event or transaction at that date would have been presented. A statement that the engagement was performed in accordance with the standards on assurance engagement 3420, assurance engagement to report on a compilation of pro forma financial information included in a prospectus, which requires the practitioner comply करे ethical requirement के साथ, plan and perform procedures to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the responsible party has compiled in all material respect the pro forma financial information on the basis of applicable criteria. Statement that a reasonable assurance engagement to report on whether the pro forma financial information has been compiled in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria involves performing procedures to assess whether the applicable criteria used by the responsible party in the compilation of pro forma financial information provide a reasonable basis for presenting the significant effect directly attributable to the event or transaction and to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence about क्या जो related pro forma adjustment है क्या वो give appropriate effect देगा to those criteria. The pro forma financial information reflect the proper application of those adjustment to the unadjusted financial information. कौन सी ऐसी procedures है जो कि select की जाती है depend on the practitioner's judgment having regard to the practitioner's understanding of the nature of the entity, the event or transaction in respect of which the pro forma financial information has been compiled, and the other relevant engagement circumstances. The engagement also involved evaluating the overall presentation of pro forma financial information. Unless otherwise required by law or regulation, the practitioner opinion using one of the following phrases which are regarded as being equivalent. क्या pro forma financial information compiled किया जाएगा in all material respect on the basis of applicable criteria. The pro forma financial information has been properly compiled on the basis stated. The practitioner's signature, the date of the report, the place of the signature. As in case of all assurance engagement, documentation has to be ensured by the practitioner while performing the engagement under the SA 3420. And this is test your understanding and तो फिर ये चैप्टर हमारा कवर हो जाएगा, बट इसमें हमने 342 नहीं पढ़ रहा है और बाकी के क्वेश्चन सब पेंडिंग है, तो जितना पढ़ा है उतना रिकॉल करने की कोशिश करते हैं. फर्दर वी विल मीट इन अ नेक्स्ट वीडियो. होप दैट यू वुड लाइक टू टेल you that this is helpful to you as well.